There are times in life when the road ahead feels uncertain, and the people around you may not see the vision you have for your future. You might face doubt, criticism, or even disbelief from others. But let me tell you this, the moment you start believing in yourself, you will unlock the potential to overcome any obstacle, achieve any goal, and change the trajectory of your life. This is a story of how I shifted my mindset and turned my dreams into reality. Not because others believed in me first, but because I believed in myself. I want to share with you the steps I took, the actions I committed to, and the mindset I adopted that finally made success not just possible, but inevitable. Believing in yourself is the foundation for everything you want to achieve in life. For the longest time, I sought validation from others. I looked to family, friends, and colleagues to confirm that my ideas and ambitions were worthy. I wanted them to tell me that I could succeed. But what I realized along the way is that no one is going to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. If you don't have that deep, unwavering faith in your abilities, then how can you expect anyone else to? The truth is that belief in yourself is not just a nice-to-have quality. It is essential for success. When you are the first person to believe in your vision, it doesn't matter who else doubts you. You will continue pushing forward. The power of self-belief lies in its ability to carry you through difficult times. There will always be naysayers, critics, and even well-meaning people who question your ideas. But if you wait for them to be convinced, you will be waiting forever. The moment I stopped seeking others' approval and started trusting in my own abilities, I saw everything shift. When you believe in yourself, you find the strength to take action, even when the odds seem stacked against you. You develop a sense of conviction in your decisions, a confidence that drives you forward, regardless of external opinion. Your belief becomes your fuel, and it keeps you going when the road is tough and the results aren't immediate. It's important to understand that self-belief is not about arrogance. It's not about thinking you are better than others or disregarding feedback. True self-belief is about having a quiet confidence in your own abilities, regardless of the obstacles or challenges you face. It's about knowing that you have what it takes to succeed, even if it hasn't happened yet. For years I doubted my potential because I was waiting for others to give me the green light. But when I started to trust myself and my abilities, I stopped waiting. I stopped seeking permission to chase my dream. I understood that my success would not be determined by anyone else's belief in me, but by my own resolve to keep going. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in your life is to trust your instinct. We all have an inner voice that guides us, but often it's drowned out by the noise of doubt and fear. The more you believe in yourself, the stronger that inner voice becomes. You start to recognize your own wisdom, and you trust that the decisions you make are leading you in the right direction. I've learned that self-belief is about tuning into that voice, ignoring the negative chatter around you, and following the path that feels right for you. Trusting your instincts becomes easier as your confidence grows. The more you trust yourself, the more you realize that you are capable of making great decisions, regardless of whether others are on board. Believing in yourself also means embracing your potential, not your limitations. Too often we focus on what we don't have or what we haven't achieved yet. We limit ourselves by looking at what's missing, rather than acknowledging the wealth of skills, strengths, and capabilities that we already possess. When you believe in yourself, you stop letting fear of failure hold you back. You start seeing challenges as opportunities to prove your resilience, rather than as obstacles that define your limitations. I realized that my potential was not defined by the doubts of others, but by my willingness to push beyond my comfort zone and tap into that inner strength. You are capable of more than you think, and the key to unlocking that potential is belief in yourself. Finally, self-belief creates an aura of possibility. When you believe in your abilities, others begin to believe in you too. People are naturally drawn to confidence. When you exude self-belief, even without saying a word, you begin to attract opportunities, partnerships and resources that will help you succeed. Your belief in yourself doesn't just motivate you, it inspires those around you. They see the conviction in your eyes, the determination in your actions, and they start to believe that you can achieve whatever you set your mind to. The truth is, the more you believe in yourself, the more others will believe in you as well. It all starts with you, and once you take that first step in trusting your own power, you'll be amazed at the doors that open. Taking consistent action is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It doesn't matter how many dreams you have or how big your vision is. If you don't take consistent, focused action, nothing will happen. For the longest time, I held on to big dreams but struggled to make progress because I wasn't taking enough action. The key is to understand that even small steps, when taken consistently, will lead to massive results over time. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. No matter how daunting your goals may seem, you can break them down into manageable tasks and take one step forward every single day. The hardest part, however, is taking that first step. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the enormity of what lies ahead. But once I made the decision to take action, regardless of the fear, uncertainty, or doubt, everything began to change. Taking action is about showing up, even when you don't feel like it. It's about doing the work even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. I learned that progress doesn't come from waiting for the perfect moment, but from taking imperfect action, learning from each step, and adjusting along the way. You must trust that the act of doing, no matter how small, is moving you closer to your goal. There will be days when you don't feel motivated. There will be days when the road seems long and the results feel distant. But it's precisely on those days when action becomes the most important. Motivation will come and go, but discipline and consistency will carry you through. I discovered that when I wasn't feeling my best or when things didn't seem to be working, the most powerful thing I could do was take one small step anyway. Even if it felt like the progress was slow, the momentum it created kept me moving forward. When you commit to taking action, even on the hardest days, you build the resilience to face the challenges that come with pursuing big goals. Consistent action also means staying disciplined in the face of setbacks. There were times when I encountered obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Maybe things didn't go as planned, or I faced rejection or failure. It would have been easy to quit or give up, but I realized that setbacks are part of the journey. It's through these challenges that we learn, grow, and become stronger. Taking consistent action means showing up every day, even when things aren't going your way. It's about pushing through the discomfort, the failure, and the doubt, and continuing to work toward your goals. I learned that failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of the process. Every failure was an opportunity to learn, adjust, and improve. When you commit to consistent action, you begin to build habits that will support your long-term success. At first, it may feel like you're not making a significant impact, but over time, those small daily actions accumulate, creating powerful results. I found that the more consistently I worked toward my goals, the more natural the process became. It was no longer a struggle to stay focused or to take action. It became a habit, a part of my daily routine. The key to mastering this is to create a system where action becomes non-negotiable. You set yourself up for success by making it impossible not to act. When you establish a routine of consistent action, it no longer requires motivation. It becomes a part of who you are. Taking consistent action also reinforces a sense of responsibility. I realized that no one else could do the work for me. It was up to me to take the necessary steps to create the life I wanted. Success isn't a gift that is handed to you, it's something you earn through relentless effort. By taking consistent action, you begin to take ownership of your own success. This sense of responsibility shifts your mindset and makes you more proactive in all areas of your life. It reminds you that you are the driver of your own destiny, and it is through your actions that you will shape your future. In today's fast-paced world, distractions are everywhere. With social media, endless notifications, and a constant barrage of information, staying focused has become one of the greatest challenges we face. But one of the most powerful things I learned on my journey is that success is built on focus. Focus is the skill that enables you to filter out the noise and concentrate your energy on what truly matters. Without focus, your efforts will be scattered and your dreams will remain distant. I realized that cultivating an unshakable focus was the key to transforming my life. It wasn't about working harder, but about working smarter, by directing all my energy toward my goals and tuning out everything else. The first step in developing focus is setting clear, specific goals. Without clarity, it's easy to become overwhelmed by all the opportunities and distractions that come your way. When I finally sat down and clarified what I truly wanted, everything changed. I started to realize that success isn't about doing everything, it's about doing the right thing. You must identify what's truly important to you and give those things your undivided attention. The moment I did this, I noticed that my energy shifted. I became more intentional in how I spent my time. My efforts were no longer spread thin across countless tasks, but were concentrated on activities that would bring me closer to my vision. Focus creates clarity, and clarity creates power. Another essential aspect of cultivating focus is learning how to say no. Saying no isn't always easy, especially when there are so many distractions pulling at your attention. But I had to learn that every time I said yes to something that wasn't aligned with my goals, I was saying no to my dream. I began to recognize that my time and energy were limited resources, and I needed to guard them fiercely. It was a tough decision at first, but by saying no to the things that didn't matter, I was able to say yes to the things that did. Focus requires discipline, the discipline to say no to distractions, to unnecessary commitments, and to anything that doesn't contribute to your greater vision. This mindset shift allowed me to stop wasting time and start investing it in what truly matters. A critical part of maintaining focus is eliminating the distractions that pull your attention in multiple directions. I had to be intentional about creating an environment that supported my goals. This meant setting boundaries, both personally and professionally. I started blocking off time in my schedule for deep work, where I would focus on nothing but the task at hand. I turned off notifications, set my phone aside, and eliminated any distractions that could derail my focus. This was a game changer. It wasn't easy at first, but the more I practiced focusing without interruptions, the easier it became to stay in the zone. Creating a distraction-free environment allowed me to concentrate fully on the work that would move me toward my dream. To build unshakable focus, I also had to develop a mental routine that kept me centered throughout the day. I realized that focus wasn't just about external conditions. It was also about how I managed my internal state. Starting each day with a clear intention and focusing my mind on my goals was crucial. I learned to visualize my success, to affirm my capabilities, and to remind myself of the larger purpose behind my work. I practiced mindfulness, staying present in each moment and avoiding the temptation to worry about the future or dwell on the past. By cultivating this mental clarity and discipline, I was able to stay focused on the task in front of me and avoid the trap of distraction. Focus isn't just a skill, it's a habit that you develop through daily practice. Lastly, maintaining focus requires resilience in the face of setbacks. It's easy to lose focus when things aren't going as planned or when challenges arise. But I realized that setbacks are simply part of the journey. Instead of letting obstacles derail my focus, I learned to use them as fuel to stay on track. When things got tough, I reminded myself of why I was doing this and kept my eyes on the prize. Success doesn't happen without obstacles, but it's how you handle those obstacles that defines your level of success. By staying focused on my long-term vision, I was able to push through the temporary difficulties and continue moving forward. Developing a growth mindset is perhaps one of the most powerful shifts you can make in your life. When you embrace a growth mindset, you fundamentally change the way you approach challenges, setbacks, and your own potential. A growth mindset is the belief that your abilities, intelligence, and talents are not fixed. They can be developed and expanded over time. Early on, I used to believe that success was reserved for people with natural talent or intelligence. But as I began to understand the power of mindset, I realized that success is not about being born with extraordinary abilities. It's about your willingness to grow, learn, and improve. Once I adopted a growth mindset, everything in my life started to change. I saw every challenge as an opportunity to learn rather than as a reason to give up. A growth mindset encourages you to see failure differently. Instead of viewing failure as a negative outcome or a sign of inadequacy, it becomes a necessary part of the learning process. I used to avoid failure at all costs, afraid that it would prove I wasn't good enough. But the more I embraced the idea that failure is simply feedback, the more I began to take risks, try new things, and step outside my comfort zone. Each failure I encountered taught me something valuable about myself, about the process, and about how I could improve. Rather than letting failure define me, I learned to let it refine me. The more I failed, the more I grew. The key to success, I learned, wasn't avoiding failure, but learning from it and using it as a stepping stone. Having a growth mindset also means seeing challenges as opportunities to stretch your ability. Whenever I faced a tough situation, I reminded myself that this was my chance to grow stronger, smarter, and more capable. Instead of retreating in fear, I leaned into the challenge, determined to find a way through it. Developing a growth mindset is about choosing to view every obstacle as a chance to test your limits and expand your capacity. Over time, I began to embrace discomfort because I knew that it was through discomfort that I would make the greatest stride. The more I pushed myself, the more I realized that I was capable of far more than I had ever imagined. It wasn't about avoiding struggle, but about leaning into it with the belief that I would come out stronger on the other side. Another powerful aspect of a growth mindset is the belief in continuous learning. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that once you've learned something, that's the end of the journey. But in truth, learning is a lifelong process. I adopted the habit of viewing every experience as an opportunity to learn something new, whether it was a small piece of knowledge or a broader lesson about life and success. I sought out feedback, read books, listened to podcasts, and surrounded myself with people who could help me grow. When I stopped thinking I knew it all and opened myself up to learning from every situation, I started to unlock new levels of potential within myself. A growth mindset isn't about being perfect. It's about being open to growth at every stage of your journey. One of the most transformative aspects of developing a growth mindset is how it changes the way you approach criticism. I used to take criticism personally, viewing it as an attack on my abilities or work. But as I embraced a growth mindset, I realized that criticism is simply another form of feedback, a way for me to improve. When I stopped getting defensive and started listening with the intent to learn, I found that criticism became one of my most valuable tools for growth. It's important to differentiate between destructive criticism and constructive feedback. A growth mindset allows you to sift through criticism and extract the lessons that will make you better. Instead of feeling discouraged, I began to feel energized by the idea that every piece of criticism could make me better. Finally, a growth mindset allows you to persevere through the hard times, knowing that progress takes time. Success is not instant, and growth doesn't happen overnight. I had to learn that it's the small, consistent actions over time that lead to the biggest results. Even when things weren't going as planned, when I faced setbacks or challenges, I held on to the belief that growth was still happening. I realized that success isn't a destination, it's a journey of continual improvement. By adopting a growth mindset, I started to see every moment, every setback, and every challenge as part of a larger ongoing process of evolution. The key was to keep moving forward, knowing that each step was bringing me closer to becoming the person I wanted to be. Believing in yourself is the foundation upon which all success is built. For years I struggled with self-doubt. I questioned my abilities, my worth, and whether I had what it took to achieve the goals I dreamed about. I spent so much time looking outside of myself for validation that I failed to see the power that already existed within me. But over time I realized that self-belief isn't something you wait for, it's something you cultivate through your actions, thoughts, and mindset. You must truly believe that you are capable of achieving your goals, and once you do, your actions will align with that belief. Self-belief is not about being arrogant or overconfident. It's about understanding that you have the capacity to overcome obstacles and achieve greatness, regardless of the challenges you face. One of the first steps to cultivating unwavering self-belief is to eliminate negative self-talk. I used to be my harshest critic, constantly putting myself down and doubting my every move. I realized that this inner dialogue was undermining my success. Negative thoughts and self-criticism only serve to weaken your confidence and hinder your progress. Replacing this negative self-talk with empowering affirmations is an essential practice. I began to tell myself that I was capable, that I was deserving of success, and that I could overcome anything that came my way. The more I repeated these positive affirmations, the more my belief in myself grew. It wasn't an overnight change, but the shift from negative to positive thinking was powerful. Over time, my actions began to reflect my new self-belief, and I started to see results. Another important factor in cultivating self-belief is setting small, achievable goals. When you set big, daunting goals, it's easy to become overwhelmed and question your abilities. But when you break those goals down into smaller, more manageable steps, you begin to build momentum. With each small victory, my self-belief grew. These little wins served as proof that I was capable of achieving what I set my mind to. I learned that self-belief isn't something that happens in a single moment. It's built through consistent action and small successes along the way. Every time I accomplished a small goal, my confidence grew, and I started to realize that the bigger goals were simply the culmination of many small actions taken over time. To cultivate unwavering self-belief, I also had to learn to trust my instinct. There were times when I faced decisions that seemed difficult or uncertain, but I realized that my intuition was often the best guide. Trusting your instincts means listening to that inner voice that tells you what feels right. I used to second-guess myself constantly, wondering if I was making the right choices. But as I began to trust myself more, I found that the answers were often clearer than I had believed. Developing the ability to make decisions with confidence, even when the path forward wasn't entirely clear, strengthened my belief in my own judgment. Over time, I learned that the more I trusted myself, the more I trusted the process and the journey. Surrounding myself with supportive, like-minded individuals was another crucial factor in building self-belief. There were times when I felt discouraged, and it was easy to let self-doubt creep in. But the people you spend time with can either lift you up or bring you down. I intentionally sought out people who believed in me, who encouraged me to keep going, and who celebrated my progress, no matter how small. The more I surrounded myself with positive influences, the more my self-belief grew. I realized that the energy of those around me had a direct impact on my mindset. When you surround yourself with people who inspire you and believe in your potential, it becomes much easier to believe in yourself. Their belief in you helps reinforce your own. Finally, self-belief is reinforced by taking responsibility for your own life and choices. I had to accept that my success or failure was ultimately in my hands. There were no excuses, no one else to blame. This sense of personal responsibility forced me to take ownership of my actions and to stop waiting for the perfect circumstances or the approval of others. The moment I took responsibility for my life, I felt empowered. I realized that if I wasn't where I wanted to be, it wasn't because I wasn't capable. It was because I hadn't fully taken charge of my own destiny. Self-belief comes from knowing that you are the one in control of your future, and that through your actions and mindset, you can create the success you desire. In the end, success is not a product of fleeting moments of inspiration, nor is it a result of bursts of effort that fade as quickly as they came. It's about showing up every day, no matter the obstacles or setbacks, and continuing to put in the work, even when it feels like no one is watching. It's about believing in yourself, committing to the process, and making progress every single day. The habits we cultivate, the mindset we choose, and the decisions we make in each moment determine whether we rise or fall. Remember this: greatness is not about doing something extraordinary once, it's about doing ordinary things with extraordinary consistency. If you commit to these habits, keep believing in your own potential, and never stop pushing forward, you will see results. The noise of your success will speak louder than any doubt, and the world will take notice. But it starts with you, right now, making the decision to be relentless, to commit to your journey, and to never back down. So go out there, embrace the power of consistency, and let your success make the noise. Consistency is the bridge between your dreams and your success. It's easy to be motivated and enthusiastic when you're starting something new, but the real test of your potential comes when the initial excitement fades and you're left with the day in, day out grind. I came to realize that success isn't built on one great moment of inspiration or a burst of effort. It's built on small, consistent actions taken every single day. I had to learn that if I wanted to see significant results, I had to commit to showing up every day, no matter how I felt or what challenges arose. It's the small, consistent steps that compound over time to create the big results that we all desire. The habit of consistency is one of the greatest secrets to long-term success. When I first started focusing on consistency, I noticed that it wasn't about being perfect every time. It was about being persistent, even when things weren't going perfectly. There were many days when I felt tired, discouraged, or even tempted to give up. But I understood that my success would not be determined by the number of days I felt motivated or inspired, but by the days I chose to push forward despite how I felt. The true test of your commitment is whether you continue to take action on the days when motivation isn't there, and that's where consistency comes in. It's about making progress even on the days when progress feels slow, even when the results aren't immediately visible. Consistency is the quiet engine that drives you toward your goals, even when you can't see the destination clearly ahead. One powerful lesson I learned about consistency is that it's often the little things that make the biggest difference. Early on, I would focus on huge tasks and try to make massive leaps in a single day, only to burn out or get discouraged by the lack of immediate results. But as I shifted my focus to small, manageable actions that I could do every day, I saw much better results. Whether it was reading a few pages of a book, writing a paragraph, or dedicating 30 minutes to practice, these small actions added up over time. Each of them may have seemed insignificant in the moment, but over the course of weeks and months, they built momentum. The key to success lies not in taking one giant leap, but in taking one step after another, consistently. Every small action compounds, and eventually it creates the results you're aiming for. I also realized that consistency doesn't mean doing the same thing without adjusting or improving. While consistency is about showing up every day, It's also about learning from your experiences and improving as you go. I had to understand that consistency includes the willingness to adapt, refine, and tweak my approach as I learned from each day. This meant being open to feedback, reflecting on what worked and what didn't, and making incremental improvements to my processes. For example, when I started my work or any new project, I quickly discovered that some methods were more effective than others. Consistency wasn't about rigidly sticking to one approach, but rather about the ongoing commitment to improve every day. The key was to stay focused on progress, even if it meant adjusting the path along the way. One thing that helped me stay consistent was the establishment of clear routines and habits. The more I structured my days with intentional routines, the easier it became to remain consistent in my action. I realized that success didn't happen by accident. It was the result of consistently following a set of behaviors that aligned with my goals. I created a morning routine that helped me start my day with purpose, and a night routine that allowed me to reflect on my progress. I also set aside time each day to focus on specific tasks that would move me closer to my long-term objectives. The more I embedded these habits into my life, the more automatic they became, and the easier it was to stay consistent in my action. Routines create momentum, and momentum drives success. Another crucial element of consistency is resilience, the ability to stay committed to your goals even in the face of setbacks or failures. There were times when things didn't go as planned. There were days when I faced disappointment, obstacles, or outright failure, but what kept me moving forward was the knowledge that consistency would eventually pay off. I learned that failures are simply part of the journey, and consistency is the way to ensure that setbacks don't derail your progress. Resilience is about getting up after you fall, continuing to move forward even when things seem difficult, and showing up day after day, no matter how tough it gets. The power of consistency lies in its ability to keep you moving, to keep you going, even when the results are not immediate or visible. Finally, I learned that consistency is not about effort alone. It's about maintaining a positive long-term vision. There were days when I felt like giving up or when I questioned whether my efforts would ever lead to success. But it was my unwavering vision of what I wanted to achieve that kept me going. Every day that I stayed consistent, I reminded myself of the bigger picture. I kept my eyes on the long-term goal and focused on the process, not the immediate outcome. Consistency is about trusting the process and having the faith that your efforts will yield results, even if you don't see them right away. When you stay true to your vision and show up every day, your actions will build a foundation for success that will eventually pay off.